Hi everyone, yes, I'm filming this on TikTok, that's why you might see my little watermark flying around throughout the video. But I'm not going to upload this to TikTok, I'm just going to save it and then upload it to YouTube. It just makes my editing job a little easier. I am bringing my podcast to YouTube. If you didn't already know, I have a podcast. It's called the Tea Time Podcast that I broadcast on a platform called Stereo. I'm not taking the podcast away from Stereo. I'm just bringing it to YouTube in addition to Stereo. Stereo is this really cool platform where I can do my podcast live and you guys can submit questions that I can answer in real time. And then what I usually do is I'll take the audio from the podcast and then upload it to Patreon the next day for my patrons. My patrons are also able to vote for podcast topics every week. So every time I do a podcast on Stereo, the topic is picked out by my patrons on Patreon. But not everyone is able to make a Stereo account for whatever reason. And I've been wanting to make the podcast more accessible for quite some time now. I've thought about maybe putting it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and whatnot. But I've also been really stuck with what to do with my YouTube channel. But Stereo does this really cool thing where not only can I download the MP3 audio of the podcast, I can also download an MP4 video. On Stereo, everything is in cartoon format. Everyone has these little cartoon avatars, so when you tune into the live podcast, you see my little live avatar talking throughout the podcast. And once the podcast is done, Stereo allows me to download video of my little avatar person talking. And I think whenever someone asks a question, their little cartoon person pops up while they ask the question. I think it's super cute. So in order to expand my YouTube channel and make the podcast more accessible, I've decided that I want to, in addition to Stereo and Patreon, bring my podcast to YouTube. How it'll work is for the next couple weeks, 2 or 3 times a week, I'm going to start uploading old episodes of the podcast to YouTube because there's a lot to catch up on. But once I am caught up, how it's going to work is Wednesdays, I will do the live show on Stereo like I always have. Patrons will still get to pick out the topics for the podcast like they always have. Then on Thursdays, I'll upload the audio to Patreon. They'll be the first ones to get it, just like I always have. Then on Fridays, I will upload the MP4 of the podcast to YouTube. This will probably be in late January, early February, once I've caught up with all the old episodes. So if you start getting a lot of YouTube notifications from me, that's why. Maybe I'll also upload a short to YouTube every now and then so you can still see my face. But overall, the goal is to expand my podcast to more people. I think this might bring more people to the live show to ask their questions. I'll finally be able to make something out of my YouTube channel. And I'm not just in this for the money, but it would be nice if my YouTube channel and podcast could start paying the bills too. One of my biggest goals for this year is just to expand my brand, my horizons, my avenues, everything. And I think that this is a really good way to start. So today, I'm filming this on Monday, January 2nd. I'll try to upload this later today after I film this. So a couple times a week, you might be getting notifications from me, from YouTube, uploading old episodes of the podcast. And once I'm all caught up, like I said, that will go down to once a week. But let me know what you guys think of this idea. I know a lot of people don't even know that I have a podcast because TikTok suppresses everything. I will post a link to Stereo down below if you're interested in tuning into the live show. My Patreon will also be linked down below. I just added a bunch of new tiers. So in addition to being able to vote for podcast topics, there's lots of other cool things you can do on there. I just started a Discord server just for my patrons and lots of other cool things. So keep an eye out. The Tea Time Podcast is expanding, and so is spirituality as a whole. And I hope that you guys will tune into the adventure. Bye, everyone. Check out the links in the description.